Hi. So, I play in a band based out of Chicago, and we recently did a little micro tour through Indianapolis and Louisville. So while we were in Kentucky, we had some time to kill before we loaded into the venue, so we actually ended up going to a Goodwill. I love Goodwills. I shop at them whenever I need photo frames or random electronics, and if you get lucky, they'll be selling pro audio gear for like $5 because they don't know what it is. Anyway, we found a couple interesting things inside, but nothing we were looking to drop money on, so this Goodwill was looking like a bust. That was until one of my bandmates told me that they had guitars at the front. And sitting there for $60 was this gig bag, and inside slept this Johnson Stratocaster copy. I probably wouldn't have bought it if it was just the guitar and the gig bag by themselves, and plus, it's a black Strat with a white pickguard. Can you get any more boring? But the gig bag is actually pretty okay. It's got alright padding and has several pockets. And not only that, aside from the guitar, inside there was a cable, a strap, a couple books, a polishing cloth, a pouch with a few picks, and a new set of strings, and it had a plastic multi-effects unit too. So about 10 minutes later, I walked out of the Goodwill with a guitar. And with how tightly our car was packed, we were barely even able to fit it inside with the rest of our gear, but we managed. All things considered, this thing is in fantastic shape, and as you'll soon see, it has a really interesting story, so I think it deserves some TLC and to go to someone who won't thrash it around. So Johnson is a bit of an interesting brand for me because I do have a little bit of history with it. Back when I played bass live more often, I had a couple basses that I would be rough with, and I actually bought this Johnson Precision bass copy from a pawn shop for around $100 with the intent of breaking it at some point. I did notice, though, that the fit and finish felt much better than you'd probably expect from a cheap knockoff. It was set up well, and it had a decent weight to it. I could also see some finish touch-ups on the back, so whoever owned it before me cared enough about it to keep it looking nice. Later that same day, I brought it to rehearsal, and as soon as I plugged it in, I suddenly understood the whole P-bass thing and why so many people swear by them. Fender rarely gets their designs wrong, and the P-bass is no exception. Check out that headstock, by the way. It's just like a Fender Swinger or a Fender Performer. I love it. I have modded this a little. I swapped out the knobs to these random ones I had lying around from Wish.com, and I also swapped the 3-ply white-black white pickguard for 3-ply black-white-black pickguard. My favorite bassist is Jimmy Wheelwright from Tiger Cub, and he uses a Sunburst P-bass with a black pickguard on it every so often. So, of course, I had to mod mine to look like his. I also replaced the original tuners with ones from a Squier neck that I found in the trash at my old job, and they work fantastic. Other than that, it's stock, and it's seriously the only bass I ever use for recording, even though I currently own 4 other basses. It just sounds so good. So let me bring you up to speed on how this thing feels right now. This Strat copy obviously has a different headstock design, but besides that, quality-wise, it feels very similar to the bass. It isn't light, so they didn't use chopstick wood for it like with the other ultra-cheap instruments that I've gone through. As for the tuners, I mean, they tune. You could probably upgrade them, but right now they work just fine. I'll probably tighten the buttons a little bit since they don't have much resistance to them right now. The neck feels excellent. No sharp fret ends, very comfortable, and really fast. Absolutely no complaints there, though we'll see if we have to adjust the truss rod at all. Electronics? Well, what you see is what you get. 3 single coils, probably with bar magnets on the bottom, which is what you usually find with cheap Strat knockoffs. The switch moves, but it doesn't feel particularly high quality. The pots do feel pretty good, though, and it does have a 3-ply pickguard, which was a pleasant surprise. Sadly, this guitar did not come with a vibrato arm, but trust me, we will test this bridge out. The strings are probably 10 years old, and I can feel myself getting tetanus just from looking at them. And the entire guitar itself is just caked in filth. Goodwill also decided to put 2 price tag stickers on the guitar itself, even though it was sitting in its case, so interesting choice. Now as for damage, there are really only 2 spots that I've found so far. There's this small deep impression on the back, and this guitar definitely took a hit on the lower strap button at some point. But these spots will be covered up normally. One's on the back, and one could be covered up by a Strat, so all things considered, it could be worse. So now let's bring everything over to the workbench. We'll open up this can of worms, and we'll see what we can find. So before we get to the guitar, I want to take a look at the things that come in the case, because it tells a story. Starting with the strap, I don't see any branding on it, but it seems like it's been well used. Same goes for this polishing cloth, though it does have some Fender branding, so the old owner cared about keeping this cheap guitar looking nice. Now let's take a look at these strings. They're called Charmin Billies and are 10 to 46s, which is actually pretty close to my preferred gauge. I usually use 10 to 50s. Pretty good price too. We also see a website and a name here, Music Unlimited in Central City, Kentucky. I thought that maybe that's where the guitar was bought from, or at least the store that the previous owner went to a lot. So I went to the website and the website wasn't there. So I checked Google Maps and I found a car stereo store called Audio Unlimited, but that clearly wasn't it, and it was in a different city. Then I went to Google and I found a cover band. Then I went to Facebook and I found a company that runs audio for events, and that was as much as I could find. Safe to say, this store does not exist anymore, which definitely sucks. Inside the string pouch, I also found this really funny double pick. I've never seen anything like this ever. Just as a side tangent, I looked up Central City, Kentucky, and found that it was founded in 1826 and underwent a couple name changes. The Everly brothers used to live there, which is super cool, and there's this monument to them located there too. It's home to about 6,000 people today, and if you look it up on Google Maps, you'll find several pictures of a flipped pickup truck. Now we can take a look at the cable, which is also branded Music Unlimited, and has a phone number. I didn't want to call it in case the number belongs to someone else now, but I'm willing to bet it's dead. Next I found this blue pouch, and there were a few picks inside. This guy liked his thin picks. These two are both .46s, though these picks are slightly thicker. There were also a couple books inside. Here was the first one, the Guitar Chord Encyclopedia. Looks like he had every basic chord bookmarked here. And there's also a Hal Leonard guitar book, and it even comes with a little CD in the back. Now the most interesting thing I found was this multi-effects unit. Apparently this sold for $120, which I gotta steal. Just doing some preliminary searching on Reverb, this seems like a fairly basic multi-effects unit from the 90s or the 2000s. They don't sell for much these days, but I'm gonna plug this in and we're gonna see what it sounds like. Now we can get to the main course, which is the guitar. First off, you can see that little dent in the back, as well as the finish chipping by the strap button. But that's the only two major cosmetic spots that I found. I'm talking about this thing as if it's like a vintage Strat, but again, like for what it is, I am pretty amazed by how clean it is. This guy definitely cared about this guitar. Here's a good close-up view of just the general grime and stuff that has been caked on this guitar. I don't know how long it had been sitting for or how long it was at that Goodwill, but it is in desperate need of a good cleaning. Strings are off, going in the trash. I want to open this up now and see how stock this thing is. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So have a look at this. This surprised me. I have never seen Strat pickups with a design like this before. I don't know if that's shielding plates or what, but that is very interesting. I also like how there are 3 different spots for you to run the wire through, so that gave the people at the factory some options, I guess. The pots and switch look about what I was expecting though. Nothing too special here. And the rats look about like what I was expecting as well, though this will only accept single coil sized pickups. Look at all that dirt. I'm gonna clean this up. Okay, so I opened up one of the pickups, since it seems like it'll go back together fine, and we can take a look at the design. Again, I have never seen anything like this. That's really interesting. I'm really curious to hear how this will sound. It probably won't sound anything special, but just knowing that they're constructed like this is pretty cool. Okay, so I've just pulled the pickguard off. You can see just how discolored it's gotten over the years. You can even see that some of the original pickguard plastic is still on there. So I'm going to take these stickers off, and I'm going to see how well I can clean this up. Cleaned up pretty okay. It's just got that weathered color. This was just to get off all that dirt and grime, you know. Next, I'll probably open up the back and desolder a few things just so I can have the husk on its own, and I'll give it a nice thorough deep cleaning. So here's what we're working with as far as the vibrato goes. Looks like we've got 3 springs sort of down into this little point pattern, and that's where the claw is. I'm probably going to set this up to a point where I can use the vibrato in a more way that's comfortable for me. But first we are going to clean this up because, again, pretty grimy. Alright, that wasn't too terrible. Just a bunch of surface level grime. It came off pretty easily. It didn't take nearly as much as I thought it would. So next I want to tackle the neck. This thing needs some hydration, so I'm going to grab my Dunlop kit and I'm going to hydrate this fingerboard. Filthy. Ah. Alright, I think that turned out pretty well. I really like the color of this. Okay, well, that actually didn't take as much as I thought it would. I'm going to leave the bridge and the tuners on. I wiped them down a little bit off camera just to take off some of the dirt and grime, but I like the patina, so I'm going to be keeping that. Yeah, I think all that's left right now is to throw everything back onto this thing. Okay, that's interesting. Why would you solder the ground wire to the claw like that? That's a little funny. I guess I should dust these pickup covers off too, right? Hey, are you ready for this? I wasn't filming, so hey, it's almost all back together now. Ah! Okay, so it's all together now. Sorry if I lost all that footage, but it's together now, it's wired up. So what I'm going to do now is string it up with some Fender 10s. They are 10 to 46, which is what the gauge on the string pack that came with the guitar is. I don't want to use those strings just because I find them really cool and I just don't really want to put them on here because I think they're a cool part of history. So these are just brand new. I'm going to throw them on and see how they are. Okay, it's strung up. I'm going to tune it up, set the pickups to where I want, and see if the truss rod needs any adjustment. I'll probably figure out what's going on with the vibrato. I'll throw the back plate on and we can get to plugging it in and hearing how it sounds. Alright, so looking at the 21st fret here, that's not great. I would say that's just shy of a 1/4 inch above the frets, so I'm gonna mess with the truss rod and see what I can do. It feels great, honestly. It feels really good. This vibrato does not feel good. Trying different configurations, it's not very good. Yeah, I'm trying every single configuration I can with the springs and the claw. This thing's just really stiff. Doesn't feel very good. I think that's about as good as we're gonna get, so that's what we're rocking right now. Alright, I guess that's that. So I'm setting up the demo right now, and just for shites and giggles, here's where the strap was set at, so that's fun. Okay, I tried to use the multi-effects unit, but I couldn't figure out how to work it, and I just couldn't coax a good sound out of it. So I'm just going to use my normal rig. I've got a Joyo Tube Screamer clone going into an Earthquaker Life pedal, and I'm just going to be using the amplitude switch on that, which is going to give me a rad style distortion. It's going into my late 70s Silverface Fender Bassman 135 on the normal channel, and I'll just flash the settings on screen for you here. Then it's going into a 90s Fender GE 412 cabinet. and that's being recorded into my audio interface into Mixcraft 8.1. So yeah, let's see what this sounds like. Alright, so that was the guitar. If you're still here, then I'm proud of you. So I usually gravitate towards humbuckers. I mean, I have a dozen or so guitars, and only one of them has single coils. So I may just not know what good single coils sound like, but I really liked how this guitar sounded. The cleans especially were full of clarity, and the distorted tones sounded particularly mean. Let me just brag for a second here and say that this is probably the best setup job I've ever performed on a guitar. This thing feels amazing. The action is so stupidly low you barely have to press down the strings to play. It's effortless. It makes me want to give all of my guitars a nice and proper setup now. Anyways, I guess that's the end of the video. I'll be honest, I'd love to keep this, but like I said at the beginning, it's a black Strat with a white pickguard at the end of the day, and that's not really my cup of tea. Normally I'd mod the hell out of this, meaning I'd give it a master tone mod and throw in a Seymour Duncan JB before doing other weird stuff to it. But I already have basically all of the tones that this guitar can offer covered. So I think I'm just going to let this one go, and I'll list it online. Whoever owned this before me cared about it, and I don't want to hack it up with my silly punk rock mods. I want it to be loved as it is. Maybe this will become a thing where I buy cheap guitars and fix them up. It probably won't be particularly interesting videos, but damn it, I love doing this, so I'm going to do it. And if you want to come along with me, then follow along with whatever I do next, then that would be pretty cool. Until then, drive safe.